Hey guys, tonight we're sinking into a story that starts quiet, like most betrayals do. You're standing in the kitchen, rinsing out two coffee mugs, and behind you she laughs at something on her phone. But the laugh, it's wrong. It's too light, too unfamiliar. You freeze. Not out of suspicion, not yet. But something in your bones stiffens, a primal radar-only heartbreak can awaken. You tell yourself it's nothing. Everyone changes. Maybe she's just tired. Or maybe work is stressing her out. But it's not the stress that keeps her from your touch at night, is it? It's not the pressure of a deadline that makes her flinch when you brush a hand across her back. No, this is different. And you feel it. You try to convince yourself you're imagining things. After all, you've built a life together. There are framed photos and a shared Netflix account. Those things mean something, right? Here's a strange bit. During the Roman Empire, Emperor Claudius supposedly banned marriage for young men, thinking single soldiers fought better. Couples would marry in secret. Deceit, but for love. And now, centuries later, you're witnessing deceit too, just not the kind worth romanticizing. Historians still argue whether love always dies slowly, or if sometimes it collapses in one violent instant. In your case, it began dying the night her laughter stopped sounding like it belonged to you. So you sit there in the dim light, the TV muttering in the background, and you realize you're more alone with her than you've ever been by yourself. And that's when your story truly begins, not with the cheating, but with the quiet you can't ignore. You don't confront her right away. No, you do what most people do when denial still offers comfort. You start paying attention, not obsessively, not yet. But the pieces begin falling together like whispers in a hallway. Her phone screen always tilted away. Quick trips to the grocery store that take an hour longer than they should. That tired excuse of working late. Again. You remember reading once that during World War II, the British used decoy airfields. Fake runways lit at night to fool enemy bombers. Maybe that's what this relationship has become. A decoy. You're standing on a runway that looks real until you try to land on it and realize there's no substance, no safety, no truth. And then it happens. You finally see the message, a fragment of a conversation between her and someone named T. It's not graphic. It doesn't have to be. The familiarity in their tone says everything. The nicknames, the inside jokes, the plans. Plans she never mentioned to you. You stare at the screen, not out of shock, but because your body hasn't caught up to what your heart already knows. This isn't a mistake. It's a choice. Repeated. Carefully hidden. Purposeful. Historians still argue whether betrayal is worse when it's emotional or physical. You can't say which one this is yet. You only know the sting is real. And it's curiously quiet. You don't yell. You don't throw the phone. You just feel your whole world reorganize in your chest. And not for the better. So what do? You put the phone down. You go to bed. You lay beside her, listening to her breathe as if she hadn't just punctured your soul with silence and lies. The next morning feels like a performance. You wake up beside someone you no longer recognize, but you play your role anyway. You make coffee. You ask about her day. You even smile when she kisses your cheek on her way out the door. It's not cowardice. It's calculation. You've always believed in knowing before acting, gathering all the pieces before flipping the board. And so you do. You dig deeper, quietly, methodically. Phone records. Social media activity. Late-night whispers you now remember differently. Her lies weren't sloppy. They were rehearsed. Like a Cold War spy, she built layers of deception under the skin of your everyday life. You uncover more than you expected. T has a name now. A face. A LinkedIn profile. Married. 2 kids. They met at a conference a year ago. You feel sick, not just at the betrayal, but at how long it's been happening while you were busy making plans for the two of you. Vacations. Mortgage payments. Maybe even kids of your own. There's a fringe theory in psychology called emotional mirroring, suggesting that cheaters sometimes pick partners who reflect back the parts of themselves they feel are missing. You wonder if she ever truly saw you, or just a placeholder until something shinier came along. Historians still debate whether Julius Caesar knew Brutus would betray him. Some say he saw the knife coming and welcomed it out of exhaustion. You're starting to understand that now. The hurt isn't just in the betrayal. It's in the slow, quiet realization that the person you loved was never really yours. And yet, you don't explode. You don't confront. Not yet. You go to work, attend meetings, laugh at jokes. But inside, something begins to shift. A center of gravity pulling you toward a different version of yourself. One you didn't know existed until now. You start to reclaim your space and silence. Her perfume no longer lingers in the hallway because you crack a window. Her playlist doesn't echo through the living room because you switch to podcasts she hates. Each small act feels like a thread pulled from the fabric of a life you built together, and the unraveling, it's strangely soothing. Then one afternoon, you're leaving the office when you see her, across the street, laughing into her phone, eyes sparkling like they once did for you. But the smile isn't for you. It never was. It belongs to someone else now. And instead of rage, you feel something colder, detachment. Like watching a scene from a movie you've seen too many times to care about the ending. You go home and make a decision. Not a loud one, not a cinematic one. You don't flip the table. You pack a bag. You book a short stay at a hotel nearby. Not to punish her, not to storm out dramatically, but because you deserve space to breathe. To feel. To heal. It's interesting. Historically, samurai who lost their honor often chose silence over vengeance. They'd retreat into the mountains, training, reflecting, becoming something more than broken men. You're not claiming to be a warrior, but there's something poetic in how peace can be the sharpest blade. There's a fringe detail you remember from an article once. Octopuses, when trapped in tanks they can't escape, start opening jars, using tools, finding quiet rebellion in intelligence. You wonder if your withdrawal is the same, a methodical undoing, a silent protest that speaks louder than shouting ever could. Historians still argue whether silence in relationships is always toxic, or if, in some cases, it's the final stand of someone who has nothing left to explain. That night, you sleep for the first time in days, not because it's over, but because you finally chose yourself. The morning after you left, your phone buzzes with a message from her. Where are you? You don't reply. Not yet. You sip coffee in a hotel robe, staring out at a city that suddenly feels unfamiliar and free. There's a strange power in choosing not to answer. For once, you're not scrambling to fix the broken. Later she sends another, "We need to talk." But do you? The truth already screamed itself when she chose someone else and thought you'd never find out. You think about all the times you apologized just to keep the peace, even when she was the one holding a match to your boundaries. Instead of responding, you walk. Past your old favorite bakery, past the bookstore you never visited together because she thought it was too quiet. And as you walk, you remember who you were before the compromise became constant. A soft drizzle begins. You don't run. Just stroll, letting it wash away what clung to you. Rain has a history too. Did you know Victorian poets believed walking in the rain could wash sins from a weary soul? Sounds dramatic, but honestly, they might have been onto something. You stop under a cafe awning, and that's where it happens. She's there. Not in person, but on your screen. Her name lights up again. A call this time. You don't pick up. Not because you're being cruel, but because you need space, not explanations. There's a debate that never dies among relationship experts. When trust is shattered, should you rebuild or start from scratch? No consensus. No easy answer. But as you stand there, soaked and strangely calm, the answer begins to form in your chest. Maybe you're not meant to rebuild the same house. Maybe it's time to walk a new path entirely. And maybe, just maybe, that path doesn't include her. You check into a different hotel that night, one with huge windows and no memories. You order room service, not because you're hungry, but because the silence is too loud. The clink of silverware on china becomes the soundtrack to your newfound solitude. She calls again, then texts, then leaves a voicemail. You finally listen to it, bracing yourself. "I know I messed up," she says, voice trembling, "but can we please talk?" You pause. The voice that used to soothe now sounds like static. A memory. Not a promise. There's an odd little historical fact you once read about the Japanese art of kintsugi, where broken pottery is repaired with gold, highlighting the cracks rather than hiding them. It's beautiful. But that only works when both halves want to be whole again. And she? She poured acid into the cracks. You scroll social media just to distract yourself. That's when you stumble upon her new guy's profile. It's public. There's a photo of them, taken last week. She's laughing in his arms. The caption? Found my forever. You laugh. Not out of humor, but the bitter disbelief that follows betrayal. She had already started her new chapter while still writing fake lines in yours. Historians still argue whether betrayal is more about the act itself or the slow erosion of dignity it causes afterward. You're starting to think it's both, but here's the twist. You're not angry anymore. Not in that fire-burning throw-thing sort of way. You're just done. There's a peace that comes with choosing yourself after being chosen last for so long. You open your notes app and type something simple. Not angry, just awake. And in that moment, it feels like the first truth you've written in years. The next morning, the world looks different. Or maybe it's just that you finally see it without her in the frame. You grab a coffee from a little corner shop you'd never noticed before, even though it's been there all along. Funny how healing starts in the smallest, most ordinary places. The barista gives you a free muffin. You look like you need it, she says with a half smile. You do. You thank her, and it's the first genuine smile you've exchanged with a stranger in weeks. You sit by the window, sunlight spilling over your table like a quiet blessing. For the first time in a long time, you don't reach for your phone. You just breathe. It's in that pause that you start reflecting on what came before, all the little signs, the absences, the cold silences masked as, "I'm just tired." It wasn't just a betrayal. It was a slow fade, like the way old photographs lose color. Historians still argue whether emotional neglect is more damaging than one dramatic betrayal. But you know the answer in your bones. It's the long loneliness that hollows you out, not just the final knife. A few days later, you meet someone. At first, it's just conversation. Light, curious, careful. Her name's Elise. She laughs with her whole chest, asks questions, waits for your answers. She doesn't know your story yet, but when she looks at you, it's without judgment. That in itself feels revolutionary. And here's your quirky fact of the day. In the 1800s, Victorians believed heartbreak could literally kill. Doctors called it broken heart syndrome. Turns out they weren't entirely wrong, but you're still here, still standing. And for the first time in forever, your heart doesn't feel broken. It feels bruised, maybe, but beating on its own terms. You and Elise start spending more time together. It's not sudden, not dramatic, just a slow unfolding, like morning light through sheer curtains. She never pries, never pushes. You tell her bits and pieces, offering them like fragile glass, and she holds them with care. One night, over late-night noodles and a playlist full of nostalgic indie rock, you finally talk about the accident, how your ex found out about Elise, how the messages started, first subtle, then threatening, how one day she showed up outside your building, screaming, and how she tried to run you both off the road. It had been a crisp Sunday morning. You and Elise were heading out to a farmer's market, laughing about nothing, when a familiar car came barreling toward your lane. No mistaking it. Your ex, eyes wild, mouth contorted in rage. You swerved, screamed, Elise screamed, and by some miracle, the car missed you, spun out, crashed into a fence. You sat in stunned silence, heart drumming so loud it drowned out the sirens. Even now, the memory returns in fragments. Shards of glass, smoke, the impossible roar of tires. Historians still argue whether love turned into obsession is a modern phenomenon or a timeless madness. But you know what you saw on her face that day. It wasn't heartbreak. It was possession. Elise stayed. That night, as you both sat on the edge of your bed, shaking and quiet, she said softly, "You didn't deserve any of that. None of it." And you believed her. Here's your odd detail. In ancient Rome, love spells were inscribed on lead tablets and buried in graves. Obsession isn't new. It just wears different masks now. But in your world, the mask had finally slipped. And now, you had a choice, to hide or to heal. You decide it's time to take back control, not just of your safety, but of your story. You file a report, you block her number, change your route to work, install cameras. Elise helps you without hesitation. She never makes you feel weak or dramatic. She just asks, "What do you need next?" like a teammate, not a therapist. And something begins to shift inside you. You're no longer living in fear of your past, but in defense of your future. At first, you'd thought that moving on meant ignoring what happened. But you're starting to see that healing is messier. It's about naming the pain, dragging it into the light, and deciding to move forward anyway. You pick up a new hobby, photography. Elise is your reluctant model. Your favorite photos are the ones where she's caught mid-laugh or staring directly into your lens with that look that says, "I see you, all of you." Historians still argue whether personal reinvention is born of trauma or time, but you know this. Surviving changed you, yes, but it didn't ruin you. It carved space inside you where resilience now lives. Here's a fringe fact for you. In 18th century France, broken mirrors were believed to trap the soul of a past lover. Superstitious or not, part of you wonders if that's what your ex became. Just a reflection of who you once were, now shattered. One evening, Elise turns to you while brushing her hair and says, "I think I like who you're becoming." You don't say anything back. You just reach for your camera, frame her in the light, and quietly take the shot. You're still here. And maybe for the first time, you're finally okay with that. The tension finally begins to ebb, like the tide pulling back after a storm. You and Elise spend more quiet evenings together. No drama, no threats, just soft music and conversations about everything and nothing. Your new life feels fragile but honest. The scars from the past are still there, but they're becoming part of the landscape rather than the whole map. You think back to the moment you first caught your wife cheating. The shock, the heartbreak, how you thought your world had ended. But it hadn't. It simply changed shape. Historians still argue whether emotional resilience is innate or learned. But your journey tells you it's a little of both, like muscle memory for the heart. Here's an odd tidbit. The ancient Greeks believed that music could soothe the soul wounded by betrayal. Maybe that's why your playlist now is full of soft acoustic tunes, and sometimes you find yourself humming along without realizing it. Your ex? She fades out of your life like an echo, a storm you survived. The legal case wraps up with a restraining order, but more importantly, you feel the chains of fear lift. The love you found afterward is gentle, real. It's not about replacing the past, but creating something new, something that doesn't feel like survival, but like living. Tonight, as you lie in bed, you close your eyes and feel the quiet peace of finally being free. No more running, no more fear. Just you, your new love, and the soft hum of a life rebuilt from the ashes. You smile and whisper, "I'm okay now." And maybe that's all anyone really wants to hear. Slight whisper, "Sleep well, you've earned it."